Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, working with members to find health coverage for every stage of life, helping to make care and coverage more accessible in more ways for more people across the Rochester community. Details online at excellusbcbs.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made a dozen light years away from Earth on a spaceship that carried a mission to save the human race from a dying sun. On this ship, one man woke up to find that he was the last living member of the crew, and he had no memory of why he was there in the first place. So begins the hottest movie in the country, Project Hail Mary, a story that touches many genres. Science fiction, there's comedy, action, even a buddy flick in there, only this time the two buddies include one human and one Iridian. This past weekend, I took the most fitting date I could think of to see Project Hail Mary at the Little, astrophysicist Adam Frank. Adam is the author of The Little Book of Aliens. He's had a lot to say about how Hollywood depicts space missions. And could we learn anything from Project Hail Mary, I wondered? Did they get the science right? Is it possible that our sun could go cold in the future? And would he rather live on Earth or arid? Last week, Vice President J.D. Vance reignited a conversation about aliens when the Vice President said he was going to get to the bottom of the alien files. He just hadn't had time yet. Well, let's get to the bottom of something, anyway, with astrophysicist Adam Frank. Dr. Frank is an author. He's the Helen F. and Fred H. Gowen Professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Rochester. Now you're a movie critic. Welcome to the program.
Wow, finally, check that box off.
If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to give my review, and I'll do it in the style of Rocky. 2 thumbs up. And I got my thumbs down here. Poor Rocky couldn't figure out, the alien couldn't figure out thumbs up or down. Or maybe he couldn't do it.
He just couldn't do it. His hands, like whatever his digits were not aligned that way. Yeah.
He tried to do thumbs up, it was thumbs down. 2 for me. I loved it. So let's start with this.
2 for me, too. It was great.
2 down, thumbs up.
2 down, up.
Thumbs, yeah. And what we're not going to do for the audience this hour is, if you haven't seen Project Hail Mary, this isn't going to be a conversation of 2 people talking about a movie you've never seen and going to bore you to death. We're going to talk about some of what I think are the really interesting themes from the movie, why the movie is working so well, and some of the application in real life. We're going to talk about aliens. The Vice President had a lot to say about aliens on a recent podcast. Apparently, J.D. Vance says he's obsessed with aliens and he wants to get to the bottom, even wants to go to Area 51. So we'll talk about all that and more. And there's a documentary out there that I told Adam I would try to watch.
Because I watched it recently.
You watched the whole hour 45
I watched the whole,
of the Disclosure doc. Now, Steven Spielberg's going to have a movie coming out called Disclosure Day, in which an alien race sort of is revealed to the human population. And what does the word? Why disclosure is that's one thing that,
because that's where the focus on now. So I think the movie's called Age of Disclosure. The documentary. Sorry, the documentary.
Age of Disclosure.
Age of Disclosure, and it made a lot of news among the people who care about it. And I was like, everyone's like, you got to watch this. You got to watch this because it shows the truth. So the whole idea
about
is
aliens.
about disclosure, because really what it's about is that the government knows. The government knows and has known, and that's what all these hearings are about. And yeah, we'll get to this, but I finally watched it with a good friend, Rafe Martin, who's also my teacher, my Zen teacher. Wow, I was like, okay. So we'll talk about it. We'll get there.
Were you enjoying any legal recreational marijuana when you watched?
No,
that might have helped.
Didn't need to, but I was just like, I just couldn't believe. I just couldn't. Wow, they took it and they cranked it up to like 40. You know what I mean? The thing goes to 10, and they
cranked it 40.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that coming up here. Let's start with Project Hail Mary, which is the #1 movie in the country. It may win a bunch of awards. Everybody, even the critics love it. There's a few who don't. The criticism, if there is any that I've read, is like this was too pat. It was too fan pleasing. Everything was about pleasing the audience and giving you too much of an easy good thing, and Ryan Gosling and
that's terrible. Let's never do that in a movie. Let's only make people uncomfortable and sad.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were parts of the movie that were plenty uncomfortable and even sad for me. I was surprised at how emotionally attached I got to the alien. I mean, I cannot believe how well they created an alien whose name ends up being Rocky, Ryan Gosling's character. Ryland Grace, scientist Ryland Grace, names the alien Rocky because he looks like a rocky form.
He's a rock.
But he's kind of like a spider rock. I mean, he moves like a spider. He's got these limbs, and he can move pretty fast. But yeah, he's rocky, and I got attached to him.
Yeah, yeah.
I did.
Very, very well done in that sort of sense of. There's a way in which it's a buddy movie.
It is a buddy movie.
One of them is a sentient stone.
So I want to listen to a clip from the movie. And in this clip that we're about to hear is Ryan Gosling's character, Ryland Grace, after meeting this alien, a dozen light years from Earth, way
Somewhere
out,
around there,
something like that, way out in space. And they figure out that they're on the same mission. So for the Earth, the sun is going cold. Something is kind of killing the sun. And he's out on a mission to try to figure out what might save it. And he finds Rocky, this alien who's on his own ship, a much cooler, bigger ship. And Rocky's there for the same reason. So they have to try to get to know each other. Rocky's verbalization sounds kind of like a cat purring, which you'll hear. But they use technology to give voice to Rocky, and they've got to find the actual voice for the alien. So this is a pretty funny clip where they're trying to find the right voice that fits Rocky. Let's listen.
What? Try this.
Why is a school teacher in space? Question.
No.
Don't like that voice.
Can't unhear it, really.
Scary.
Let's try this.
Oh,
Nope.
why is
Nope.
school teacher
No
in
need.
space?
No need to even continue. Good. Nope.
Why is a school teacher in space? What's so funny? Question.
Why is a school teacher in space?
I mean,
It has charm, but no.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Why is a school teacher in space?
that's not bad.
I like.
All right. And in answer to your question, I have no idea what I'm doing in space. I don't remember.
There you go. So they found the voice for Rocky.
That was very funny with the scary. Ooh, no. The sexy one. He's like not even going.
Yeah,
there.
no. But there's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of lightness, and I want to start with this. A lot of the depiction of aliens in film, in fiction, has been the aliens to fear. Yeah. And we pretty quickly find out here that Rocky's a fellow traveler.
Yeah.
He's not something to fear. In fact, he's going to be an ally because he's just doing what we're trying to do. Save your star. Save your son. And why is it that that's unusual? Why is the fearsome alien more common, you think?
I think because it sells better, right? I mean, always. Why are 90% of the movies horror, thriller? I mean, there's a market for buddy comedies, but it's not the largest market in movies. So the depiction of aliens, I think on some level, it's just this is what sells. It's scary, but I think also what you're also seeing is the mapping of the unknown. Of with that their life somewhere else. I think there's certainly if we wanted to get all Jungian or something, we're mapping certain fears we have about the deep unknown onto other kinds of life. But as you point out, there's absolutely no reason to lean one way or the other. And in fact, really, when that idea that aliens are scary, they're here to take over or whatever, all you're really doing is just projecting human psychology and human history onto the possibilities of extraterrestrial life, when really the mind, who knows what alien minds might be like. They may be totally unfathomable to us.
Well, certainly I understand the idea of the law of the jungle, that kill or be killed, and there's a reasonable fear that people smarter than me have said we should not be broadcasting radio signals into deep space. We should not be putting our hand up and waving like we're here, because anybody who could come find us could probably kill us. And do we want to take that risk? I understand that. But I also feel like there's a pretty good chance that anybody we bump into has a similar sensibility about, understanding if they're a technological civilization, how hard it is to become one, and the value of preserving that and the value of peace. Maybe I'm just a romantic.
Wow, dude, you got to wear that toga. I got to put that toga on. And all those Star Trek things were the advanced civilization.
But why not, though? I mean, I guess there's just as much a chance that an advanced civilization would look at us as kind of the anthill, inconsequential. We could wipe them out, but we're not really interested. They're a lower life form. But maybe it would be like
Yeah,
Rocky.
I think all of these things are projecting our own
Limited.
particular, not only our own history, but also like very much our own very specific culture, which is, sort of 20th century scientific from Europe, if you were to ask an indigenous culture about other forms of life, they may have a much different sort of story about the relationship of, species to each other, right? Certainly most indigenous cultures saw themselves as sort of brothers and sisters of the bear or of the, so, I think it's one particular story. And even that story about evolution, that, evolution is dog eat dog. And that's actually only part of the story, cooperation. And that's actually, we've learned from people like Lynn Margulis, one of the founders of Gaia theory, brilliant biologist who changed understanding of evolutionary biology by recognizing that like cooperation is just as important. So I think, there's so much of this narrative about what alien life would be like that is very particular to one particular story of one particular culture at one particular time. But I do think, having thought about this professionally, I think it's if anything's likely, it's that we just don't even understand each other, that they're just, the evolutionary lineage of creatures that had nothing to do with us, grew up in an entirely different kind of planet. We may be living in completely different worlds. So rather than them being evil and having, these sort of like human projected evil qualities of they just want to take over or whatever, or turn us into goo, or that they're angels, I think it's more likely that we're just we're not really going to be understanding each other at all. And that's why my favorite alien contact movie is Arrival, where there really is this amazing, I mean, in the end, we're able to communicate, but there really is this amazing cognitive dissonance between us and the heptapods, I think they're called, because they're experiencing time in an entirely different way.
Talking to Adam Frank, astrophysicist, author of The Little Book of Aliens, among other works. And he's our guest talking about Project Hail Mary and related themes here. So what we'll do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the science of it, and then we're going to kind of broaden out. But I know I don't want to speak for you. My sense is that you enjoy at least trying to figure out when you're watching, whether it's Project Hail Mary, whether it's The Expanse, whatever. Are they doing okay on the science? Is it plausible enough that, like, the lay public will believe anything, right? But you... higher bar here. So how'd they do on the science of Project Hail Mary?
All right, well, first let me say, I don't really care.
You don't care?
No, in general, I don't care. It's science fiction. All you have to build for me with science fiction is a coherent set of rules.
Okay,
right?
so have some rules.
Have some
rules. They don't
rules
have to be
and
our
stick with
rules
them.
or the existing rules.
Right. I mean, I'm perfectly fine if people want to bend things or create other kinds. It's like, a universe with magic or something. Like, Lord of the Rings. You just have to have universe building for nerds like me, whether it's fantasy or science fiction, and I'm a science fiction guy. It's just about, you've laid out what the universe's rules are, and now you don't break them, because that sort of sets a constraint for the story.
My issue with the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, worst movie ever, was like they broke the rules. Now Palpatine, the Emperor, is back because you're so lazy you couldn't figure out a new plot here. And invalidating a previous movie, a huge moment of a previous movie, and, by the way, also breaking the rules of the universe that you create. Right.
And that's Star Wars. The main, I love Star Wars, but those main movies after the third movie, because, I'm 63, the next six I thought were just terrible. But however, the stuff that's happened on Disney and Rogue One.
I like Rogue One.
Yeah, and they filled, really, some of the stuff on Disney, especially the animated shows, have really filled things in, and then, of course, there's Andor. Right? Have you seen Andor?
No.
Oh, you've got to see Andor.
My son loves it.
Andor it's on a different world. But it really fills in the political universe.
So that's interesting. But bottom line is you can bend as an astrophysicist yourself. The rules in fiction don't have to line up with the rules that we have in reality, as long as the rules that are created are consistently adhered to.
Right. But I do absolutely get excited, when the physics is real. So, for example, The Expanse, we've talked about this a bunch. What I would consider to be the greatest television science fiction show ever made, better than Star Trek. There is a scene in it because, it takes place in the solar system a couple hundred years from now. And just like in Project Hail Mary, they get the whole idea of gravity right. Like in space, if your rocket engines are off, there's no gravity. There's you're not pushed against the floor. If the thing isn't rotating, right? So there's the centripetal force. You don't get pushed against the floor. If neither of those happening, you just float weightless. And there's a scene in The Expanse where the detective is on a rotating space station and he pours a drink, and the whiskey comes out and it does a spiral, which is what it wouldn't exactly happen that way, but the Coriolis force would actually force that to happen. And I was just like,
so number one, like cool visual. Number two, like scientifically
they got it
correct.
right. I was literally jumping up and down on the couch. My wife was like, "Oh wow, you're a nerd." but so the great thing about Project Hail Mary is that all the science pretty much they nail it. They really get it all right. All the mechanics, the time travel, how long it takes to get out there and back. What happens in terms of how the spaceships are going to meet each other, when there's gravity, when there's not gravity. It's all they really, really do a great job. And the book, of course, that is Andy Weir's shtick, just like with The Martian and Artemis, and it's always very scientifically accurate.
Yeah, and a movie that was 2 hours and 40 minutes long,
Right.
even a 2 hour and 40 minute movie, had to really cut down on a lot of the science because they had a story to tell.
Yeah.
So everything I've read, and I've not read the book, indicates that the movie is much less technical than the book was.
Absolutely. The Martian is a great example of a movie where they held to what Andy Weir wanted to do, right? The whole thing is Matt Damon sciencing the blank out of the problem. He says that. He says, I'm going to have to science the blank out of this problem. And you just see him solve one problem after another. That's what the movie's about. Where this one had a little bit of this, but really it was much more the broader story and the relation. This was about the relationship between Ryan Gosling and Rocky.
So when he meets Rocky, an alien from a planet called Arid, and he meets an alien who doesn't breathe the same way and has different needs. And so they have to figure out how to be in physical space together.
Yeah.
So on his ship, Rocky's got to be in his own sort of sealed ball, which becomes like this little hamster wheel thing that's quite cute, actually.
Very funny, yeah.
It's very funny, especially when he gets on the ship for the first time and he's very excited to see how humans do it. And he keeps going, very messy, very messy. Ryan Gosling's going, I didn't have time to clean. Come on. But that, in general, assuming we ever make contact, that's going to be an issue, right? So that's quote-unquote accurate, I guess.
Yeah, could be. The conditions under which life forms on another planet, there's a variety of possibilities. Whether you're oxygen breathing or not, there's ways, you might want to argue why oxygen is important, why oxygen, I'm just doing this I'm teaching astrobiology right now, and I'm going through this with my class. Like, will life be carbon-based? Will it be oxygen breathing? There's reason. Will it use water? There are good reasons to say, yeah, life's got to go through the periodic table and say, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that. There's reasons why all that might be possible, but nature is way more creative than we are. So the possibility that these creatures, Rocky lives on much hotter, way hotter, and breathes. I forgot exactly what Rocky breathes, what the chemistry of his breathing apparatus is, but it's not oxygen. So, there's no way that a human being would be able to survive in Rocky's ship without a spacesuit. There's no way that Rocky can survive on an Earth ship without an enclosure. So,
and they are very clever at figuring out as movie makers how to still have them together and communicating while honoring the science that says realistically they couldn't just hang out in the same room.
Right. And that's what's so great. When you see the beautiful thing about seeing the science honored is the sense that what happens is the science becomes, if you do it well, the science becomes a character in the story. Like you saw this with The Expanse a lot of times where there's this one space battle that happens where, they all lock in, they, get into their seats, put on their restraints, but then a tool case falls open. And then as the ship is doing all these maneuvers, these tools are flying from one side of and that becomes super dangerous. So the physics of momentum conservation becomes a character. And just like here, their inability to be in the same space in the same way becomes a character, becomes an obstacle, it becomes part of the narrative of the story.
Now, let's peel back a little bit. This all starts when the sun is kind of dying or cooling.
Right.
Something is attacking the sun or cooling the sun. And I want you to tell me a little bit about whether that is just a fun Andy Weir piece of science fiction or if there's anything that could actually cool our sun to the point of causing extinction.
Yeah, that is a fun Andy Weir piece of
there's not a bacteria that's going to go attack the sun.
There's no bacteria floating around in space. So, the idea in the book is that there's this thing they call the astrophage, which is this space floating bacteria that, will land on a star and begin to consume the photons from the star, and then that ends up kind of blanketing the star and shutting down dropping the total light output. And they see that this is not just happening on Earth; it's happening to all the stars around them, which is including Rocky's star, which is how this And then they see that there's one star it's not happening to, and that's why they got to go there and figure out what's going on.
So that's why he bumps into Rocky. They're there for the same reason.
They're there for the same reason.
What is the star what's happening at the star that it can resist this infection?
Right.
But the infection, you think, that's...
No, there's no. I mean, it's a great idea, and even in the book, they treat that. He does a pretty good job of sort of working its way through what this thing is. But that is complete science fiction, and there's nothing that's not based in anything.
There's a book spoiler that I'm going to give away here that does not exist in the movie, and I didn't read the book, but I've read enough to know about this part of the plot. When you've talked about climate change in the past, I still think there are very few people who talk about climate change the way you do. I think that you have tapped into what has divided people socially and politically on the issue and how to bridge that. One of the things you said long ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
I remember that.
Was that it's amazing that we're causing climate change, that it is an actual human achievement.
Yeah.
Because we figured out how to power our lives and grow our cities and civilization. But oops, in doing so, we are causing this external effect that's going to be a problem if we don't deal with it. And that's something to admire or be amazed at, and then also be adults about and then try to fix. As opposed to we are the disease of the planet, we are the bacteria. And so one of the things we've talked about is what happens. What's the approach that says, here's the adult way to solve this? Well, in the movie, you've got massive cooling happening for a different reason, but there's the same kind of debates about who do you tell, who do the authority, what do they do about it, what are they allowed to do? And in the book, the woman, what's her name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, she's a German woman, and she's leading this team. She takes matters in her own hands, and they end up nuking Antarctica, if I understand that correctly.
So yes, I don't really
because
remember
they're trying to do something to create more heat radiation, combat the cooling. She ends up going to jail because she becomes this rogue activist who's desperate to ward it off. Eva Strapp is the name of the character. Thank you, producer Megan Mack. And in the movie, she is, similarly determined to the point where she's willing to tell Ryan Gosling's character, "You're going on this mission. You don't have an option."
Yeah,
and we have a
team.
We have a team of people in dark suits who are about to surround you and put a needle in your neck. But I'm curious to know if you think the book or even the movie depicts the desperation that's going to come if we don't do something about this kind of an issue.
Yeah, with something. Well, I mean, because this was 20 or 30 years and everybody's going to die. This was really
in this situation in Project Hail Mary. It's a 30-year timeline to lose at least a quarter to half of the Earth's population.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, right, I'm trying to remember that it's been a while since I read the book, but I think the book dealt a little bit more with what was happening on Earth, whereas pretty much after you leave the Earth on the spaceship with Ryan Gosling, then you don't really hear much from
You're in a space buddy movie.
You're in a space buddy movie. And so there's only towards the end, there's just kind of one scene of her.
What's happening back on.
What happens back on. But pretty much you've left the Earth. When it comes to climate change, what I think is going to happen, because we are blowing past 1.5 degrees. It's pretty remarkable. I'm working with some people on just sort of thinking about what this means. So I think, we're going to see what happens when the planet, again, I think the important thing is it's not going to be an apocalypse, and it's not going to be Mad Max. It's going to be very difficult.
Or it's not going to be a singular event that you can watch outside your window one time.
No.
Which, by the way, I think is what makes it kind of harder to sell some people on it.
That's what the problem is, right? But, it'll be one thing after another. This is my feeling, is that climate change, we're going to be living on another planet. The next 100 years, I think we've talked about this before, my kind of feeling is the next 100 years are going to be difficult, right? There's a famous book by Barbara Tuchman about the 13th century. I think it's called Through a Distant Mirror.
Through a Distant Mirror.
Yeah, Through a Distant Mirror.
The tumultuous, I've got it at home. It's great.
Yeah,
it's about
somewhere
the
in
plague.
the introduction, I couldn't find it again, but she says, it was a difficult time for humanity. That 100 years.
To state the obvious.
Yeah, because it was the Black Plague. It was the 100 Years' War. It was, and I kind of feel like that's what we're about to go through. Like we, for whatever reason, our evolutionary psychology did not allow us, we knew this was happening and we couldn't organize ourselves. And, part of this story is greed, of the people who just didn't want to lose the cash that it would have involved. Because other people are going to make money, you see what's happening with China. China is investing fully in
clean energy,
EVs. And they're going to
EVs.
reap the benefits because we pulled back. But either way, it's, we didn't make the change in time. But it's not, there will still be people here in 100 years. There will still be young people trying to build lives, but it's going to be difficult. But the important thing to remember is that, that dark, the 13th century, the tumultuous 13th century was why serfdom ended. Right? That was the end of feudalism. It's where the Renaissance could never have happened without the 13th century. So, it's possible that we're going to be forced. Like at some point, it's going to become so obvious that climate change is happening that even the people who are like right now, filling my stream on Twitter with just like the most ridiculous. I was on a show where I was arguing about climate change, and it's kind of a wackadoodle show. And so like right now, my Twitter feed is hilarious. That even those people are going to be forced to be like, oh, okay, I guess it's happening. And then we'll do something about it. But we'll be living on another planet by that time. And so that will be the challenge, is figuring out another planet mean this planet, a different version of this planet.
We're going to be living on another planet metaphorically.
But
we are not going to successfully pack our bags and take the next Spirit Airlines flight
to Mars.
To Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, no. I mean, this planet will be...
This is what we got.
Yeah, it's going to be a different... the Earth, there's been a lot of different versions of the Earth over billions of years.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to be living... It's not going to be a glaciated planet, right?
It's not going to be like everything is boiled to
it's not the oceans aren't going to be boiling, but, there could be some... I mean, certainly it's going to be different enough that people everywhere are going to have to deal with the difference.
Okay, so... That's a good way to kind of start this conversation. And when we come back from our only break, we're talking to astrophysicist Adam Frank about Project Hail Mary and related themes. We're going to listen to what Vice President J.D. Vance said about aliens recently. I felt your eyes roll. I could feel it.
Did you feel my sigh? Okay, here we go.
I've never felt an eye roll before. I could feel it physically. Let's listen to the Vice President when we come back, and we're gonna work through more of these scientific themes here with Adam Frank on Connections.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, supporting residents to become active members of the community, from developing life skills to gaining independence. Mary Cariola Center, transforming lives of people with disabilities. More online at marycariola.org.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. For our listeners on Finger Lakes Public Radio, WEOS, 89.5 all throughout the Finger Lakes, if you want to meet Adam Frank and attend a little event next week, it's 8 days from now, Thursday, April 9th, and that's happening at 3:30 in the afternoon. Adam is presenting at Cornell, and you are presenting biosignatures and technosignatures, why the search for life must not make distinctions.
Yeah, so this is actually the Edwin Salpeter lecture, and Edwin Salpeter was one of the greatest astronomers of the 20th century. So it's a huge honor to be asked to give this. And it's a scientific technical talk. Like this will be a full on sort of like, here's the science. But yeah, I'm arguing, my group, I've been the principal investigator for the last 7 years of the first NASA grant to study technosignatures. Technosignatures meaning signatures of technological civilizations, technological life on other planets. And we've made a huge amount of progress. I mean, our job was to sort of think about what you could do. We haven't done any searches yet. That will come in time, because the telescopes that we need to do it probably are not yet built. They will be built in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking about, how it's time, the giggle factor that was associated with scientifically thinking about life, particularly technological life on other planets. It's time to let that go, because it just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense to giggle about the possibility?
Yeah, and that because we can look now. We can literally look. And for the last 30 years, NASA's had a big astrobiology program where they've put a lot of funding into looking for biosignatures, signatures of biospheres, forests, microbial environments. But somehow still, because of UFOs, as we're going to talk about, because of UFOs, the idea of looking SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, was always kind of like, people would raise their eyes, scientists would raise their eyebrows when you talked about SETI. And SETI is now technosignatures. That's the name I use because it makes much more sense. Just the idea is that now that kind of whatever giggle factor there was about technological civilizations looking for them, just, now doesn't make any sense to distinguish the two.
We can look now, but we can still look within our own galaxy or outside our own galaxy.
It's really within it's within our galaxy, and in particular, our telescopes. We're going to be looking within the nearest few hundred light years. We probably couldn't see the signatures much further than that, so we're really looking kind of in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and so when it comes to the possibility of life, I remember the work that you did to show us that there are 10 billion trillion, at least that we know about, likely 10 billion trillion Earth-like possible planets out there. It's not rare for an Earth-like planet, a rocky planet with water, to be in a position for a sun to develop life, however it happens.
Right.
There are 10 billion trillion. It's hard to get your head around
in
that
the
many.
universe.
In the
whole
universe. But
right.
that's enough that you go, should we have multiple in our galaxy then if there's going to be technological life? Or is it possible that it's one per galaxy or one per every 1,000 galaxies?
Yeah, well, so there's 400 billion stars in the galaxy. One out of every 5 of those has a planet in the habitable zone. So,
but how many galaxies are there?
Well, no, I'm just talking about in our own galaxy.
I know. How many galaxies are there?
Well, that's the thing. There's like almost infinite number. There's like 10 to the 21 galaxies. That's how we ended up with this incredible number of 10 to the 22, which is 10 billion trillion. We got 10 billion.
All I'm saying is we are looking now better than ever.
Right.
But we're still in a small neighborhood.
And that's the thing. We can't look through the whole galaxy. So in order for us to find life, it has to, especially find civilizations, it has to be common enough that we could look through the neighborhood and have it be. So there's still, people always want to say, oh my God, the numbers, there's so many stars, there has to be life out there. Yeah, that may be true, but it doesn't mean that there's any nearby us. Or in particular, technological civilizations, it doesn't mean that there's one or exist right now, because civilizations don't last forever, right? If the average lifetime of a civilization was 100,000 years, which is a long time.
Well, super long time.
We've been a technological civilization for 200 years, and the future is looking a little dicey. So 100,000 years would be unbelievable compared to what we have in terms of duration. And if that were true, that would actually mean that it would be pretty hard to find one, because you just wouldn't overlap in time.
Because it's so short.
Billions. The galaxy's been around for 10 billion years. You have to be looking at the right time where that 100,000 hour time scale and the other, our being alive and the other civilization being alive has to overlap.
Okay. So the reason I asked you to explain that, though, is to keep trying to help us see the scale.
Yeah.
How difficult it is to get our head around time and space and distance.
Yeah.
How difficult it would be to ever come into contact with another technological civilization, despite the fact that there might be countless in the universe or even in our galaxy.
Right, and that's the thing. The universe is so big that even that number 10 billion trillion doesn't take into account just how big the galaxy is, how big the distance between stars are. Even like your next door neighbor in terms of stars is so far away that if you were traveling with the fastest thing we've ever traveled, that we've ever put into space, which was like the Voyager probe, it would take 100,000 years to get there. That is like next door neighbor.
It's wild. One of the guys from, of all things, Barstool Sports, Uncle Chops, he does almost daily interesting knowledge questions, just to expose how most of his colleagues are not very smart. And his question went around the office and he said, you're walking at 3 miles per hour and you can walk straight to the moon. How long does it take you to get there?
Yeah.
And they're all like probably like at least a week. It's like 5 days. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
What
was the actual answer? It's got to be, it's a while.
No, it's like 9 years to the moon.
To the moon.
Like
the
right
moon.
next door.
You can't get any closer than
9 years.
Right. Yeah.
If we're walking to the moon.
Right.
And that's as close as you get.
Right. And if you're traveling at 36,000 miles an hour, which is sort of I believe that's the speed of like the Voyager space probes. Yeah, it's 100,000 years. Actually, it's probably more probably of order 400,000 years to get to the nearest star. So, the distances between the stars are so vast that when we're coming to aliens visiting Earth, those distances, you got to take that into account. And you can't just wave your hands and say, oh, they've invented warp drive, because there really is no such thing as a warp drive. Like, yeah, maybe, but also on the other hand, maybe not. So you can't just, you got to take the distances and the physics seriously. So
it's going to be hard for aliens to ever get here. And yet there is a cohort of people who believe that we are a society that is suppressing systematically across different governmental administrations, systematically suppressing. For those on YouTube, go ahead and do the face you just did again. What was that? Like, I
got a lot of faces.
There's a huge conspiracy. So J.D. Vance was on Benny Johnson's podcast. I watched, so you don't have to. And he brings up aliens. And Vice President Vance had this to say.
I've still got 3 more years as vice president. I will get to the bottom of the UFO files.
Okay. Have you peeked? Have you done a peek?
Have I what?
Have you done a peek? Have you
So I actually haven't. I
the
have
full
not.
Independence Day.
I have. I have not been able to spend enough time on this to really understand it, but I am going to. Trust me, I'm obsessed with this. I've already had a couple of times where I'm like, all right, we're going to Area 51. We're going out to New Mexico. We're going to sort of get to the bottom of this. And then the timing of the trip just didn't work out. But trust me, anybody who's curious about this, I'm more curious than anybody. And I've got 3 years of the very, very tippy top of the classification. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, so you haven't been to Area 51 yet?
Not yet.
Some people say they keep the UFOs in Ohio.
Hangar 18, Hangar 18, right?
I've
heard that as well, but I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet.
Okay, all right. Well, we're waiting for it. We saw aliens.gov.
You know me.
We saw aliens.gov.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but that's a longer discussion.
Yeah, that would be a longer discussion. Like, sure, yeah, okay, it's not a giant government conspiracy with every government in the world hiding the existence of multiple crashed spaceships. No. It's demons. Oh, okay, yeah.
Problem solved. Well, Donald Trump is known to be very close to the vest. He doesn't really kind of fly off.
No,
half-cocked.
exactly. So, right, thank God.
Having been president for 4 years and then being out of the White House, he probably would have told you everything. Wouldn't have told you everything.
Oh, I have a theory.
If there was something to tell you.
Yeah, okay, actually. Can I tell my theory? I hope I might be politically incorrect here. You're looking at just in the way I'm going to frame this.
Okay.
So there's this thing in this show. There in what is it? The Age of Disclosure. There's
the documentary.
The documentary. There's this, we could talk about what's going on, but basically there is this idea that all of these Air Force guys have been seeing spaceships, going after, there's crash spaceships happening all the time, right? All the time. There's crash spaceships, and all around the world, all these different governments rush to get the crash spaceships because they're going to reverse engineer the crash spaceships and everything. So apparently there's been there's a lot of people involved who've seen crash spaceships, and they're all like military guys. And I was just thinking that if you're a military guy and you're just like some, lieutenant or something, if there was some pretty girl you were interested in, don't you think you would have maybe pocketed something and been like, hey,
check it out.
So it's the pretty girl theory. So you could put this in whatever gender form you want. But it just seems to me that it's the idea of how likely is it that all this has happened and no one's ever talked about it?
Everybody's in on it. Nobody ever leaks.
Right.
Governments change.
Right.
New administrations come in.
And it's all over the world. It's not just the Chinese are doing this,
but they're
the
all
Russians
they all know.
And nobody,
that's
why I call it the pretty girl theory. You modify it however you want. But that some guy would be like, oh, just picking up a little piece and telling the girl that he, at a bar, look, I got a piece of an alien space. Nobody would ever do that.
President Trump went to Mar-a-Lago after Biden won, and he brought Iranian war plans and documents just to show off to Mar-a-Lago guests.
Right. So
you wouldn't have brought the alien docs?
Right.
That would have been cooler for them. They'd have been like, whoa.
It stretches. So this is about this documentary where it really stretches. It's this story that it starts off with this stuff you usually heard that, the government, there's been all these sightings and that there's the Navy pilots who see things. And so it starts off in this road that I'm like, I'm all for disclosure. I have to say that I am all for disclosure. If the government knows anything, if we've got really good data,
put it out there.
Put it out there. So let's do it. But the problem with the show is after a while, like, it just starts there. And, even the stuff they're showing as supposedly evidence, these videos, I have all kinds of complaints about it. Some of those videos they've shown are already debunked. We already know that those videos are explainable. But then, after the first 20 minutes, half an hour, 40, they just start cranking it up. And so then you learn about the Legacy Program. And the Legacy Program is this, like, the super dark, deep levels of the government, which they have a nice, diagram for. The CIA is controlling along with the Air Force and the Department of Energy with private contractors. And the Legacy Program is what's keeping our heroes from revealing what's really going on. So now you've got this very X-Files kind of dark layers of the government. And then it just they crank it even up further than that, where these government contractors, again, a whole new layer of people who have never over 70 years, nobody's ever leaked anything. The government contractors have been reverse engineering. That's why everybody wants to reverse engineer what you've learned about these spacecraft. And these spacecraft are crashing all the time. I mean, here's an interesting thing. How many of our spaceships, things that have gone into space and the moon, with people on them, have crashed? 2, right? We've got 2. There were the 2 Challenger disasters. The other one happened on Earth, was a test, Apollo 1. So, our spaceships don't crash all the time. And apparently these things, which can go at Mach 4,000 and turn on a dime, these things they're crashing every week, right? So the stories just get weirder and weirder. And then finally there are these 2 scientists in quote, whose name I don't remember. And they're like, well, we've explained how it is because there are these bubbles of warped space-time that are using, negative energy. And I'm like, that's not even a thing. You're just moving your mouth and sounds are coming out. That's not physics. So the show is just so amazing on how it just doubles down and then doubles down again. And if 1/1000th of this stuff were to be true, it would be the most amazing science fiction film you've ever saw.
Okay. That's the Age of Disclosure documentary. Now, Steven Spielberg's got a movie coming out called Disclosure Day.
Right.
Now, it's fiction. Are you annoyed by that? Do you think it's going to spur more conspiracism?
Yeah, it will. This is the problem. Listen, Steven Spielberg is a great movie maker, and he's been interested in this from the beginning, right? What was his second big movie or third big movie was
Close Encounters?
Close Encounters, right? So, he's always had an interest in this. And so, I'm not particularly bummed out that he's making a movie on this because it's a movie. But yeah, it's going to feed into it. What I really worry about with all of this is, it's actually there's a lot of politics happening. There's a lot of kind of science denial that is actually attached to all of this. And it feeds into a lot of, you look at the communities, because again, I want, if there's anything out there, show it to me. I'm all for disclosure. But actually what my feeling is that we're never going to get it. We're never going to see a spaceship. We're never going to see a alien body. It's just going to be government document after government document that points to other government documents.
Innuendo.
Yeah, and that's... Yeah. They are making these unbelievable claims. These insane claims in the show. And there's never any piece of actual evidence. It's always, I saw, or I know a guy who saw. And it's come on, you can't make claims like that and expect me to believe them when you can't even show me, come on, just one piece of metal that you could bring to a bunch of government laboratories so that we could all agree. That's all I'm asking for, is just show me the spaceship. That's all. And I will be right there. But this unending, innuendo, and then people say, well, why would these government guys lie? For all kinds of reasons. And the thing that nobody tells you is that for every government person who's hey, spaceships being hidden in garages, you can find 100 government guys who are that's crazy. We said that guy's crazy. We tried to say, the head of the Pentagon's current program for UFOs actually said, Sean Kirkpatrick said, when he met these guys, he was these people are they're off the deep end. They should have their credentials revoked, their
security
clearance revoked, because these guys don't listen to reason. They're like, it's demons, and these are people who are not rational actors anymore. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but I want people to know that there are lots of people in the government, in the intelligence, because this has been around forever, since the 50s, this idea that there's UFOs, and there's always been a cadre of people in the government who believed this, and now it's a circular conversation going for 70 years.
So let me get some feedback from the audience here.
Yeah.
First of all, Alex wants to know, have you, Adam Frank, been to Area 51?
I have been to Area 51. I was part of a documentary that was doing stuff on Netflix, and they took us. We didn't get into Area 51, but I was right up in this middle of the barren desert, the guard tower or whatever. And we took us right up there.
You've written a book about.
Right.
Like a little book of aliens.
Oh, a little book of aliens about that. Yeah, right. So I've never actually been to Area 50. I mean, I've never been inside, of course, because you can't. Nobody, you're not allowed in Area 51.
But the vice president's implying that, well, he really wants to go. He's just been very busy. But he'll get there eventually.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'll get to the bottom.
I've just been too busy to find out that the world is populated by demons, and the government's known about it for 70 years. But I got really important stuff to do. So, yeah.
Okay. Gary on YouTube, what about the number of physicists who tell us that interstellar travel is not possible? Not that there are technological hurdles that prohibit it.
I'm actually one of those. I mean, at least I have a question. I'm actually literally, before this, I was writing some stuff about this, that let's say there is no warp drive. Like, as of right now, there's no coherent idea about what a warp drive is. There's been some really interesting work on it, I will say. But as of right now, it is still just science fiction. So let's say that's not possible. Then what it means is that, if you're traveling even at 0.999 light speed, then relativity effects will kick in, such that this is the term that I came up with, cultural decoherence, right? If you're traveling, the star is 100 light years away, right? So if you're traveling at light speed, it would take 100 years to get there and 100 years back. That's 200 years. So your civilization at home has, you're completely disconnected from them. But here's the thing. If you are traveling at 0.99 light speed, relativistic effects kick in. For you, it's only been 22 years. So you go back. You're in a diplomatic mission. You go, you do the diplomatic mission, you come back. You're 22 years older. Earth is 200 years older. There's just a disconnect. Like, you can't have if you don't have warp drive, it'd be hard to imagine an interstellar civilization.
So Patrick says, you got to have warp speed and you got to bend space-time, Patrick says.
Right.
Can we do that?
Well, Einstein's relativity says we can bend space-time, but there's no way that we know to build a warp drive. That we just don't know how to. It's not clear that that's physical. You can find solutions. You can manipulate. You can put in this fake term into Einstein's general theory of relativity and get what's called the Akubre metric, an Akubre drive. But it requires this thing called negative energy, which doesn't exist. So it's.
I don't know. I've seen Spaceballs. Ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed. That's a great dark helmet.
The big dark helmet. Linda says what the movie got wrong. He says, although Ryan Gosling's beard grew long, his mustache did not. This was shown during the first part of the movie. His mustache grew to basically a normal trimmed mustache length. Well, listen, you got an A-list sex symbol as your lead. That's going to be the one place where you break the science,
there
right?
you go. Right,
you keep him looking...
Yeah.
Well,
and what about his fingernails? He should have had Mandarin fingernails, right? His fingernails would keep growing.
Yeah, I would think so.
Good catch, though. That's
Linda,
an observant listener.
Very, very observant. Very good there, Linda. And, one more. Did Adam Frank see Begonia, the movie Begonia?
No.
So, apparently, is there an alien connection to Begonia? I don't want to give a spoiler away here. I thought that was just Emma Stone being sort of... I'm not going to give it. I don't know the movie. I think it's an Emma Stone movie. It was nominated for Best Picture. Okay.
I don't know.
And there may be an alien connection here.
Can I just also suggest a movie called Passengers? Passengers, which was Chris. Oh, what's his name? From Community.
Pratt.
Chris Pratt. It's an early Chris Pratt, and it's really great. It sort of went under the radar. People didn't like it for reasons, but it is also it's completely scientifically accurate. spin gravity, long duration travels between stars. I highly recommend that movie to people.
All right, Passengers. And Joel's got a correction for us.
Okay.
Barbara Tuchman. It's called The Calamitous 14th Century. And the actual quote in the book was, "It was a bad time for humanity." And like one of the ultimate understatements in literature.
So yeah, I like that. It's like it was a bad time. So we may have a challenging time ahead of us.
What gives you these days? Does anything give you optimism?
Time. That reminding ourselves that we are just players in a long drama. We have our role to play, but that history is long. Geologic history is long. Human history is long. We're not the first people to see difficult times. And, if you have to face difficult times, that's just what happens. And so face it with courage and compassion and do the right thing.
Well, last 45 seconds or so, you were pretty active in the 1980s, the anti-nuke movement, weren't you?
I was.
So there was a lot of concern in the 80s that thermonuclear war was going to be the end of all of us. And there were a lot of people who marched, who demonstrated, who advocated, and they were pretty successful.
They were.
Does now feel more fractured, or do you think that a similar result could happen on different issues?
I think there's just what's happening is that the old systems are falling apart, which happens in human history, right? The things that we just sort of assumed, were to be taken granted for, they're falling apart. That happens periodically. We're in the midst of them. That's turbulent and chaotic, and but it also presents. I don't want it. I'm ready to retire. I just want to hang out and play video games. But there's also always opportunities that occur. Just like the 14th century, things happened that allowed actually a great flourishing of humanity. So we just have to play our roles and be compassionate.
One critique of the AI situation is, what problem is it solving? A lot of tech is invented to solve problems. We need to travel faster. We need to cover more ground. We need to be safer. We need to build better homes and more insulated homes. What problem is merging with machines solving for the human race?
Being able to fire everybody.
Oh, that's right. The problem of the human workforce.
Yeah, that's really what
There's one.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion to have
That
about
is.
AI. Yeah. Because it's also, I've been using AI a lot. It's an amazing technology.
It is.
Amazing. But the way it's being deployed and the hype around it, we have a right, we as citizens, to say how we want this technology deployed.
Come back, talk to us. That's Adam Frank, astrophysicist. Thanks for being with us. We're back with you tomorrow on member-supported public media.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.